Let's get this meeting started. This is the meeting of September 13th, Water Sewer Commission. Public forum, anybody here from the public? Hearing none, if we can get on cam with the minutes, warrants and abatements.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for review of the August 9th water and sewage meeting.
Can I get a second? You want to read those?
Oh, for the minutes of last meeting.
Yeah, for the minutes. Can I get a second for the minutes, please? Peter McLean, can you second that motion?
I think he's trying, Dave. He couldn't, he just dropped out.
He just dropped out.
Yeah, I think he was trying to second it, but he must have a bad connection.
All right. We'll wait a
Just
second for him.
But just give him a second to sign back in.
All right.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Some wrong with the headphones. We'll go this way. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, Peter.
All right, Mr. McLean.
Aye.
Mr. Coleman
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
Excellent.
All right, and I'd also like to make a motion to approve the following warrants for review. Buckle up to doozy.
Hey, Cam, can you do me a favor? So we kind of talked about this this week a little bit. Why don't you just read the bottom dollar on the warrants for now on, and if anybody has any question, we'll figure it out at that time.
Yeah, definitely. That works great. All right. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the total for the warrants of $97,453.47.
Can I get a second or any discussion?
Second it.
Roll call vote, Peter.
Mr. McLean,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell.
Aye. Moving on, scheduled appointments, 6:35. Vinnie, monthly operating report for July.
I'll be covering July's monthly operating report. Plant personnel was managed by myself. We hired someone to fill the vacant grade 5 operator position. And also Dylan Moriarty. Health and safety. On July 6th, we completed Veolia's monthly inspection. Training for the month was on scissor lifts for general industry, aerial lifts for general industry, and ladder safety. And those are all prescribed by Veolia. We don't have much choice. We just kind of follow their program. For the month of July, there were several exceedances following the month prior. The DMO was completed and entered into the CDX on August 15th. The exceedances are as follows. Effluent ammonia monthly average, we reported a 1.76 milligram per liter. Our limit is a 1.42. Our effluent total phosphorus monthly average, we reported a 0.113 milligram per liter, and our limit is a 0.110 milligram per liter. I mean, that is so close. The effluent E. coli monthly average, we reported a 272 MPN per 100 milliliter, and the limit is 126 MPN per 100 milliliter. And we also had an effluent E. coli daily max of 548 MPN per 100 milliliter. And our daily allowance is a 409 MPN per 100 milliliter.
Vinny, I'm assuming those lights aren't working very well?
The lights are working just fine. The problem is the plant wasn't working very well.
Okay.
So the lights are all brand new bulbs, which there's no way to adjust them. They're 100% output, like the lights in your house. And they're doing what they should, but our effluent quality wasn't what it should have been. We had the jar testing, we figured some stuff out, and even after that, we found more issues. And yeah, it still continues, but as of today, our UVT, which is the ultraviolet transmittance, is in the mid 70s, and we only need 65 to disinfect E. coli. So we've found some pretty big things this month, and we're actually going to fix it tomorrow morning. The operations and maintenance activities for the month. On April 1st, Veolia's technical director was on site, along with another project manager. And the other project manager has a lot of experience with ballasted flock. He worked in several plants over the years. And working together, we discovered some issues in the COMAG. There's a pressure set point for the sludge and RAS systems in the COMAG. And what it was doing is it was only allowing one train to control everything. So if that train reached its pressure set point, it would start slowing down the other pump as well. So only one train would run good at a time. We have two trains. They should both work kind of individually, but that's not how it was working. Later in the month, we took care of that. But moving on to the next item, on 7/6, RBC number 10, we noticed it was making a lot of noise. So we disconnected the motor and we brought it out to Ruby Electric. They rebuild motors and pumps and stuff. They took it apart, did an inspection, and the end plates, the end housings were all worn out and non-repairable. They ordered us a replacement motor. We picked it up and LaFleur Electric installed it. On 7/13, we collected grab samples, packaged them up, sent them to Canada, and they did a collimated beam test on it. And basically, they broke the sample into a bunch of smaller samples, and they treated each sample with incrementally more UV to see if they could get to a point to disinfect our water. And no point in that test could they kill all the E. coli in the water. However, the next day after, we had a rep come out from Polydyne, and he set up a whole bunch of equipment in our lab. He took samples from our secondary clarifiers, and he calculated a dose of ferric that was 4 times what we were currently using. So we made the adjustment to that dose, and the plant really took it well. Most of August, the plant started performing way better than it had for the past few months. On 7/29, Woodard and Kern was here, and they reprogrammed the SCADA so that we could run COMAG the way it's supposed to without those pressure set point issues. We also took the surplus generator out of the building, put it outside on some skids, so it's a little bit easier to access. We're going to have a generator company come out and take a look at it and see if they can get it running easily or if it's worth getting running, if you guys are just going to sell it for scrap or something. But I've been working with Hilltop to get them out here. They're a few weeks out now. The collection system activities. On July 6th and July 17th, we collected MTA samples. We had Ed LaFord Electric rewire 211 Sunset Drive. The wiring from the main breaker panel in the house was too small for what the system requires. The system requires 220 volts coming from a double pole 30 amp breaker. And this house had a 20 amp breaker and the wiring to match it. So when we asked him to upgrade the size of the breaker, he couldn't just put a bigger breaker in. He actually had to pull all new wire through the house. And he also had to change the wire that goes from the house to the pump chamber, because that's why we ended up there. Pump station activities. July 1st, we worked with Slim Sewer. They put their camera down in the gravity main that goes to Mugget Hill Pump Station. And we were able to mark out exactly where the gravity main was, so they'd know where they had to be careful digging to replace that culvert. On July 10th, Glen Echo Shores called out with a high sound alarm about 9:30 p.m. We went out and checked it, and we couldn't find any reason why. They're not real sensitive. It normally takes quite a bit of noise to set them off, but it was July. It could have been fireworks. On July 19th, Burlingame Pump Station generator failed to start. We called FM Generator out. They said it was a bad battery. They replaced it and it's working now. I wasn't there when they replaced it. I'm not sure if they found something else going on. But when I checked it before they got there, it was reading 12 volts. And when you press the start button, the whole panel would shut down and then come right back on. So I don't know if it was a loose connection somewhere and they thought a battery was the issue, but whatever they did, it did work. On July 30th, Burlingame Pump Station lost power, and it only lost it to a single phase, so the dialer didn't call out. But that was enough to get the generator to start, and around 9:30 p.m., the generator ran out of fuel. That station only runs about once a day, so we called Slims out. He pumped out the wet well, and the next day we refueled the generator, tested the alarm dialer, and everything seemed to be working normal. The month of July, we hauled 6 loads of sludge to Cranston for disposal. We brought in 4 275-gallon totes of sodium hydroxide. That's more than previous months. Sodium hydroxide is used to increase the pH. And when we started adding that extra ferric to make the plant run better, ferric drives the pH down. So we need to balance it out by using more hydroxide. We also brought in 1 skid of soda ash, and we got 440 pounds of dried polymer. The grinder pump calls for the month. On the 8th, we got a call out to 56 Lakeview Drive, and I found a breaker and the house was turned off. Not sure how, what, when, where. That's what we found. On the 19th, we went to 155 Old Worcester Road. There was a lot of grease in the tank. We broke it up, put some degreaser in, and they were working. On the 23rd, we went to 110 Glen Echo Shores Road. There was grease on the floats, and that just prevents them from tipping the right way. So again, scraped the grease off, got them going. On the 4th, we went to 211 Sunset Drive, and that's when we found the bad wiring. And at that point, I ran a temporary wire across the ground because I'm sure, as everybody knows, the 4th of July on the lake, people really want to use the bathroom. July 12th, we went to 128 Sunset Drive, and the alarm had cleared before we even got out there, and we couldn't find anything wrong. So we put a redundant run circuit in while we're there, and haven't got a call back. We received 107 dig safe requests in July. I noticed a typo there. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
No, hearing none. Thank you, Vinnie.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Vinny.
Peter, next scheduled appointment, 650 sewer abatement request for 90 Osgood.
Yes, the resident is not on the call yet. My understanding is his water filtration system was malfunctioning, and it was must have been sending backwash water into the sewer, and he was asking for an abatement from that. I told him more than likely the answer would be no, because the backwash water did come into the system. If that backwash water would have gone out to maybe one of his drains or something like that, then it might be something that would be considered. But my last discussion with him, he said it was going into the sewer line. And in the discussion he had with Sue, he asked to be on the meeting.
All right.
But seeing he's not here, if you want to move on, Mr. Mackey and Mr. Newton are here from
Perfect.
Bristol Engineering.
Let's move on to 7, the water master plan grant. Go ahead.
Sure. So again, we've already discussed this FY 23 scope of work before it was submitted to Mass DEP, but I just wanted to kind of touch on it again, and maybe Mr. McLamb's new and talk about what was approved, and that we have gotten approval from DEP for another $200,000. We have attached a scope of work, which pretty much has 6 tasks. Task 1 will be to update the GIS for the waterline extensions. This will include the Berry Corner Road waterline extension and also the School Loop waterline extension. So we'll have all that data inputted into our GIS information. So we'll be able to pull that up on the maps. Task 2 will be to update the water model for potential new sources. This will allow us to look at the Santos property and the Overlook property and to see how those possible water sources coming online might impact our current water system, the distribution system, as far as flows and pressures go. Task 3 will include 2 additional bedrock wells at the Santos property. Task 4 could possibly be 1 additional bedrock well drilled outside of the Santos property on a different parcel based on the town-wide lineament analysis. Task 5 will be a water quality analytical services for those wells that are drilled if they provide enough water. And task 6 will be to ream well number 2 that we drilled on the Santos property last year from 6-inch to 8-inch. So we can possibly do some more flow testing on that. So Bob and Peter Newton are here to kind of probably reiterate what we're going to do and why, and maybe just touch on what was done last year a little bit and what we did accomplish that kind of led us to this scope of work. So, Bob?
Thank you, Peter. Thanks to everybody. So since the majority of the work was had to do with the wells, Peter and I talked, and I think it probably makes more sense for Peter to kind of walk them through what we accomplished this past year and what we hope to continue with the into the next fiscal year. So, Peter, want to jump in?
Sure enough. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Peter Newton with Bristol Engineering, working with Bob on the well exploration for hopefully finding you guys a water supply. FY22 is a busy year. We undertook a geophysical lineament study. So basically from using aerial photographs, I try to identify features that would likely be bedrock fractures through which water would flow. We accomplished that, and then based on that, was primarily the Santos property because that was where we were directed at the time. So because it's a limited geographic scale, we were able to devote all the resources in that one area, and we identified a number of fractures that looked promising. 7 or 8 sites that were ranked based on proximity to existing infrastructure, likelihood to be have the most interconnecting fractures through which water could flow from a larger area. And Peter and Bob and I walked the site, identified two of the proposed drilling targets, we call them, that seemed like they'd be reasonably accessible. I shouldn't say easy to access, but accessible. And then contacted the local well driller to come out and tell us whether he thought he could get out there. So part of the scope of FY22 was to do some clearing, basically get some access path to the well drilling sites. Fortunately, I think there had been a lot of clearing, tree felling, I guess, work in the area. So we were able to get reasonably close, but there was still a lot of work that needed to be done because all the non-valuable or less valuable trees were just left scattered like matchsticks that had to be tidied up and moved so that the rig could get in there. So that was actually significant component of resources, but of time to get that work done. We were able to get the 2 wells drilled. The first target, we drilled to 603 feet, and there was very limited production. There were some indications that it might be when the drilling, if the drill stem drops, it means it hits a fracture. There were some indications that the drill stem did drop at well number 1, but unfortunately those fractures weren't yielding much water. Could be a couple of reasons for that. They could be dry, they could be not connected to other fractures. They could also be filled with sediment, silts and clays from just over the millions of years, frankly, that the fractures have existed, that the water passing through them and dropping sediments. They can also be plugged with other minerals from flowing water. So we weren't super successful on well number 1. We moved over to the second site, which was target number 3 in the geophysical survey. That we drilled to 720 feet, and we did have more success with that one. The driller estimated somewhere around 35 gallons a minute for that well. And so we did an 8-hour test on that to get water quality data. The water quality is excellent. The only item of note, and it's not a big deal, frankly, is that manganese was above the secondary standard at 0.099. So it's above the 0.5 secondary standard, but may or may not require treatment. Just to be clear, so we drilled those wells as a 6-inch wells. The drilling an 8-inch well is twice the cost of drilling a 6-inch well. So the decision was made early on in the project to drill these wells as 6-inch wells, and if they proved productive or worthy, we would go back out with the driller and ream them out to an 8-inch diameter, which you can put a bigger pump in an 8-inch diameter, and you can also then do some mechanical work on the fractures to try to enlarge them if you need to. So it was basically try to be as cost effective with the grant monies that we had available in FY22. That's why item number 6 is to ream out well number 2, which does look to be worthwhile. However, we are probably going to sit tight on reaming out well number 2 until we finish the additional 3 wells, the 2 wells on the Santos property and the 1 well elsewhere. And if one of those wells is even better, then I would suggest that we invest the reaming monies, at least for FY23, on that location. And we can decide whether we want to go back and also ream well number 2. Basically, it's, do we want to invest the money? I think it makes sense to invest the money in the most productive well, and we have 3 more to drill. So we will sit tight on that one. So I think largely that's what we are going to do. There's the 2 locations of the Santos property. Peter Boria and I have had some conversations about whether one of those wells might be north of the existing production well for the campground at the entrance to the Santos property there. That well, which is very productive, does not have a compliant zone 1 protective radius. It's only about 150 feet from the structures and from dumpsters, and it just, DEP would be very reluctant to approve that well without a larger radius. So we're in conversations to determine whether we can actually, the site would be very challenging to get a rig to. So we are going to be going out with Pete Belanger of Charlton Well next Wednesday morning. Peter, that's news. Sorry, I should have told you that. I just found out. We just made that plan this afternoon. Next Wednesday morning to go look at that site, determine whether he can figure out a route to get down to a location, because there's this very steep drop off behind that well, and then also look at the other location on the Santos property and a location off the Santos property elsewhere in town.
Peter, I have a quick question.
Sure.
When you're ream out well number 2 from a 6-inch to an 8-inch, is
Yep.
there a reason that we don't bore it out to a 10-inch or a 12-inch while we're going there to bore it out anyways?
So, yeah, well, yeah, so we are committed at this point to an 8-inch because we have an 8-inch casing out there. Now,
I
there,
mean,
most
I'm
of
just thinking
these large wells.
for
What's that?
$25,000, it seems like if you're gonna drill 2 more inches, why not build, drill 4 more inches or 6 more inches?
Right, so to drill the casing, the 8-inch casing was a big investment over a 6-inch casing. And that casing is set compliant with DEP public water supply parameters. In other words, it's drilled, it's grouted and sealed into the bedrocks. So it is effectively a sanitary seal from the ground surface all the way down to the rock. It's about 30 feet. Going to a 10-inch or larger casing was considered to be far too expensive. The price doubles. The price to do the casing doubles every time you basically go up a couple inches. So we went with an 8-inch. We didn't think we really wanted to spend what would have been, I mean, we spent $35,000 a piece on these wells as it is. We would have been up in the $50,000 to $60,000 per well to do a larger diameter well. And we just didn't have that budget under the grant. The expectation is that we're going to have multiple wells in this plant that probably we won't get 150 or 200 gallons a minute out of any one well. We might get lucky. That would be fantastic. But if the well is that productive, then we're really just limited on the pump. It's the bedrock, because we're pulling water out of fractures. The fractures are what are going to limit the amount of water that comes into that the well can yield, not so much the well diameter. The well diameter is really that constrains the pump. Okay, so if the well itself is capable of yielding 500 gallons a minute, we're only going to be constrained on an 8-inch well by the size of the pump we can fit down that well, not by the well's ability to produce it. And
Okay, that makes it.
and we can, yeah, and so we can add enough, we can make the pump long enough to get the water to the surface. And then if we have to repump it to get it to the distribution system or through whatever treatment system is required, although at this point, it doesn't look like much would be required. But with that, that'll likely have to get done. So all we really need to do is get whatever water the well can yield up to the surface.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Peter, or Bob, have I covered everything, or is there more? Because I'm talking to the computer here, so I don't have I could flip over and get to my notes, but I feel like I would be turning my back on everybody on the screen. I don't want to do that.
I think, Peter, you got the gist of it. I mean, the only other item would be the water quality testing, which should go with the wells themselves.
Yep.
And there's a couple of small tasks that we'd be doing, collecting some GIS information, populating the your system map and model. And there was one more, was it? Yeah, and then updating the model. So those are really the two other items that would be in the scope. So the majority of the work, though, is the well exploration and the reaming of the wells that look promising.
Peter McLam or Cameron, you guys have any questions on any of this?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Peter and Bob. I think you broke that down very sufficiently. Looks like you'll be putting money to good use, and the Santos property seems promising. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Peter Boria, do you need a motion to approve this?
If you wouldn't mind, yes, because Bob's gonna draft a contract based on this scope of work, and I'll get the town administrator to sign it, so. Because the grant is approved, sure, a motion and quick approval would be great.
All right, so in that case, if there's no further discussion, I'll make a motion to approve the 23 scope of work.
Peter McLam, can we get a second?
We can't hear you, Peter.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote, Peter Boyer.
All right, Mr. McLean,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
and Mr. Campbell.
Aye.
Excellent.
All right.
Great.
Thanks,
So,
guys.
Bob,
Appreciate you coming in.
All right, thank you all.
My
And I'll
pleasure.
get,
Thank you, guys.
thank you, and I'll get that together for you this week, Pete.
Great, thank you.
All right, take care, everyone.
All right,
Thanks.
Peter, we'll see you next Wednesday.
You bet.
All right.
Take care.
All right, thanks.
Let's see. You want to go back to the sewer abatement request, Peter?
The resident's still not here, so I don't think we really have to unless unless you want to discuss giving him the abatement based on the information we have.
Yeah, I mean, so my thought process is, I mean, I don't think we should be responsible because a homeowner had a faulty piece of equipment that discharged into our sewer system. It seems like if there was somebody to go after, it would be the piece of equipment that failed.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Great. So if he does call back, we'll just reference that and let him know, unless he can prove that that discharges to an outside drain or something, we'll just say that there'll be no abatement to issue.
All right, so let's move on to new business, the sewer line connection at the Masonic Home Road.
Yes, at your last meeting, Mr. Gagner discussed his concerns regarding the incorrect as-built information he received from our office regarding the sewer lateral left of his property. The as-built was done by BSC Group as part of the sewer line extension that was installed by the Masonic Home Road. The location of the sewer lateral on the plan was off by one telephone pole along the property frontage on Masonic Home Road. Mr. Gagner had his contractor spend approximately half a day looking for the lateral based on the plan we provided. His contractor then called in another sub with a camera and confirmed there was no lateral at the specified location. And after they did that, they went down the other direction from the manhole and found the lateral that was not drawn on the as-built further downstream on his property, which he was able to locate on his property and actually connect to. So Mr. Gagner submitted his bill for the contractor's time for reimbursement due to the incorrect information from our as-built, but the as-built in our.
So I guess I'll go first. So I don't 100% feel like this is our fault, though I do understand where Mr. Gagner is coming from. I think this is kind of an anomaly situation, and for $1,400 for Mr. Gagner, I don't have an issue with approving this. That's my thoughts.
So are you saying that we should proceed with giving him the $1,400 or no?
I do.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the as-bills were responsible for that being wrong, I think we are responsible for that half day. So I would also agree.
Yeah, unfortunately, the information that we have was incorrect that we gave him, so.
I don't feel as if we're setting a precedence with this, because I don't feel like this is gonna probably happen again anytime soon. It's kind of an anomaly situation. So those are my thoughts. You'll need a motion, Peter, I'm assuming, to approve or deny this.
Yes, please.
All right. So I'll make a motion to proceed with paying Mr. Gagner
I'll
for his
second it.
roads.
Roll call vote, Peter.
All right, Mr. McLamb,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye. Moving on, water privilege fee, Peter.
Yes, so I just want to clarify our water privilege fee policy. It was adopted on April 8th, 2019. A copy of it is attached. I'd like to confirm that it's similar to the sewer privilege fee policy, where if a property was assessed a betterment, then there will be no privilege fee assessed unless there is an increase in usage. That is the way we go about doing privilege fees for sewer. The only difference with the water betterments is that all of the water betterments have been paid off by the ExxonMobil agreement.
So does that mean, Peter, if somebody has a water line in front of their house and they have not connected, that they need to pay a betterment, or is that betterment also been paid already by Exxon?
The properties that pay, so not all the water, yeah, so a portion of the water line was installed in 1995 by Mass Turnpike Authority, so there were no betterments assessed. That water line came up 169, went west on 20 to the 5 East service area, and then went west on Stafford Street out to J. Hammond Road and 6 West. There was
So-
no betterments assessed with that at all. So anybody who's on that water line who wants to connect now will pay a privilege fee based on our policy.
Well, so they were never charged a betterment fee, right? I mean, so if that line goes in front of your property, do you automatically have the ability to hook into it, Peter?
Sure, you can connect, but you have to pay the privilege fee because no betterment was ever assessed.
Okay. And
Now
how about the new line?
So the new line that we installed from Oxford, the portion of that, so that line on Route 20 that heads from, say, what's that? Route 31 and Route 20 heads easterly to L. Stevens Road that's active. North Side Road and some of North Main Street, those properties were all assessed a betterment. And those properties, if they were to come connect, as long as they didn't have additional usage over their betterment fee, would be allowed to connect without a privilege fee on top of that.
So
If we follow standard practice based on how we do the sewer.
so is the betterment fee for those people and the privilege fee equal the same amount of money?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the water privilege fee policy, the amount that you're charging for that is based on the betterments that were assessed.
Okay.
For water.
And the water usage is always by EDUs, correct?
Correct. It's based, the EDUs are based on Title V numbers. And that's just a standardized way to come up with basic flow for the house.
Right.
A single family home is 1 EDU, 2 families, 2 EDUs. And then the Title V flow comes into play when you start looking at commercial properties to calculate how many EDUs they'll be assessed.
Okay. So you're asking us to confirm that it's the same, the water privilege fee and the sewer privilege fee run the same way?
Correct. If there was a betterment assessed to that property, then there will be no privilege fee needed unless the usage is greater than that of the betterment that was assessed, just like
Correct.
sewer.
Correct.
So, and again, where we run into privilege fees on sewer, you're gonna see in your next agenda item is there was a parcel of land that had a house on it and had extra acreage. When the sewer line was installed, it was 1 lot. So they received a 1 betterment assessment. After that, say 5-10 years, they broke off a second lot that they subsequently sold. This person has purchased and they want to connect to sewer. because there was no betterment associated with this lot, we're gonna assess them a sewer privilege fee to be allowed to connect to that sewer line.
Perfect. I totally understand that. And
So I just
yeah,
want to make sure that you want to follow the same process for water, because it's not stated in the policy. And also, it's just a little bit different because those betterments were paid off by the ExxonMobil agreement.
Yes, all the people that the line runs in front of the house, ExxonMobil's already paid the betterment. But those people that, if they're not connected already, they'll have to pay a privilege fee.
No, so the extension that was run, the school loop, the new line that was run, there
Yeah,
was no betterments assessed. And if ExxonMobil connected those people to the water line, there was no fees charged based on the agreement.
right. But now
Now-
moving forward,
Now, moving forward, because there was no betterment assessed, those people will pay this privilege fee.
they need to pay privilege. Yes.
It's only if the betterment was assessed is where there would be no privilege fee associated.
Right.
I don't, and again, I don't know if I'm overcomplicating it or if
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I understand it that way. I mean, if you're on the Exxon loop, your betterment's already paid for you. But if you didn't connect the suit to water and you want to connect in the future, you're gonna have to pay a privilege fee
for the school loop, yes.
for the school loop, right?
Huh.
And that goes into why we sent out the registered letters over and over again. So because they could have connected for free,
Correct.
but they didn't. So now they have to pay a privilege fee moving forward.
As part of their connection, yep.
So do you need a motion on this, Peter, or is that we just come into an understanding that that's what everybody believes to be the case?
To clarify it, I think we should amend the privilege fee policy to mirror the sewer privilege fee policy with the betterment statement. Right, Sue? Because in the sewer privilege fee policy, it states for properties that did not receive a betterment. So I think to clarify it, I think the water privilege fee should kind of state the same. This water privilege fee will apply to properties that have not received a betterment, a water betterment.
Do you want to have it written up and brought to the next meeting?
Yeah, that'd probably be the cleanest way to do it, just so
Yeah.
I'm not guessing.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, I will, I'll redline the water privilege fee policy as long as everyone's on the same page with that kind of train of thought. I'll do a red line version and I'll also include a copy of the sewer privilege fee policy, just so you can see where that difference is.
Yeah, perfect.
And then we'll be able to see the two side by side and then kind of confirm that and make a motion to amend the policy if you decide to.
Perfect.
Great.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the privilege free approval for 14 Morton Station.
Yes, 14 Morton Station Road, map 41, block A, lot 17.21 is requested to connect to the sewer line. Again, like stated, this lot did not exist when betterments were assessed, which is why we need to assess a sewer privilege fee. They have purchased the grinder pump system already, and the privilege fee just needs to be assessed. In the past, the commission's just voted to assess the fee, the sewer privilege fee to that address and map block and lot, and then Sue will do up the paperwork for signature.
Can I get a motion as to such?
All right, so I'll make a motion to, sorry, excuse me. So I'm making a motion to approve the fee.
Correct. The motion will be to assess the sewer privilege fee to 14 Morton Station Road.
Oh, to assess the privilege fee. Okay. So I'll make a motion to assess the privilege fee for 14 Morton Station Road.
Second.
Roll call vote, Mr. McLean,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell. Excellent.
Let's see, moving on, all boards committee meeting on September 20th.
Yes, the annual all boards and committees meeting will be next Tuesday, September 20th at 6 PM in the senior center. This is just a round table meeting where local boards and committees get together and just kind of share what's going on with kind of everyone in the meeting to kind of share that information and get everyone on the same page and see if you kind of see what's there for overlap, and it's pretty interesting.
I'm assuming you're going to that, Peter.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll
okay.
be there.
Represent us, would you please?
You can, anyone who wants to join can join, but again, it'll pretty much just be a rundown of what's going on the sewer side, talking about, kind of a little bit on day-to-day operations, but also mostly on the upgrades that we're gonna be looking at designing and stuff like that. And then on the water side, we'll talk about, the projects that are finishing up or about to be finishing up, and the search for our own in-town water source and stuff like that. So should be pretty straightforward.
Nice. All right, moving on to water and sewer retained earnings, capital projects.
Yes, so every year, we get our sewer and water retained earnings. This year, they were certified. Our water retained earnings were $504,235. And our sewer retained earnings were $1,056,113. With special town meeting on Monday, October 24th, I recommend that we transfer $250,000 from water retained earnings to our water stabilization account. If we do this, this would make the water stabilization account balance approximately $4,008,000 and change, and will leave the remaining $254,000 in water retained earnings. I'd also recommend that we use sewer retained earnings for a couple of capital expenditures. $35,000 to purchase a new forklift. Our current forklift is probably over 25 years old, starting to kind of deteriorate a little bit, and I'm not sure it's worth the money it would take to kind of get it up and operating to 100%. I think we'd be better off investing in a new fork truck that'll last us quite a bit longer. And also looking to invest $100,000 to repave the upper parking lot at the sewer plant. This will do along the building and also in the area where we park and up the back driveway to the back door where chemicals are brought. This is pretty much the area where the fork truck handles any and all of our chemicals and moves them around. It's pretty uneven, and when you're actually on the fork truck moving some of the chemicals around, it doesn't seem to be the safest. So I think this would be a wise investment to make and just kind of clean things up and get that up and going. After that, I'd also recommend that we transfer $571,113 from the remaining sewer retained earnings to sewer stabilization. This would make our sewer stabilization account balance approximately $3,223,000 and change, and would leave approximately $350,000 in the sewer retained earnings. So the stabilization accounts are kind of, I look at them as the department's savings accounts, which is funds there for us to use for major projects that we might have coming forward in the future. The retained earnings is kind of, that money kind of just sits in limbo. So next year, when retained earnings are certified, like with the water or the funds that we're leaving in there now, that will still be there next year in retained earnings, as well as any unanticipated revenue or any unspent monies from our approved budget, which is what makes the retained earnings value grow year to year.
Peter, the $100,000 to repave the upper parking lot at the sewer plant.
Yep.
Is that the highway department? Are they doing that work?
No. I
No.
may be able to use the highway department's vendor, because the highway department goes out to bid for
Okay.
road paving.
Okay,
So I'm trying to get Jerry to come up with his vendor. It's just trying to tough to coordinate with his vendor.
okay,
To see how much it would cost for them to come up and do that. And I might also get a couple of local guys to come take a look at it and get me a price.
okay,
Because again, there's more than one way to do it. I mean, Jerry's guys can come in and they can kind of reclaim like they do the roads and then put a whole new set of a new layer of asphalt down, where we might also be able to just overlay the top of it. And I'm not sure, again, I need to talk to Jerry a little bit more and his vendor to kind of see what the best way for longevity is gonna be.
okay. So that $100,000 number is not a quote that we've already
I
received.
unfortunately, no, I haven't been able to get a quote
Okay.
together for now. I'm just hoping that that's a high number.
Okay,
And in talking to Jerry, hopefully it is high, you know, if it comes in lower than that, we can either do it for less or we can extend our area of paving
okay, fantastic.
and kind of just carry it further away from the building and just fix more than less.
Anybody have any questions on these things?
Who's usually driving the forklift? Is it Vinny?
Vinny or any of the guys here.
Gotcha. And also, how far is that parking lot going? Is it going to like the gates on the entrance or?
I'm not sure we'd make it that far, no. It's
Yeah.
more so from like the loading dock door along the building where the fork truck comes out, along the front through our parking area, and then up towards the back of the building where they haul the chemicals up that hill.
Gotcha.
And then again, depending what the cost is, we can probably carry it a little bit further if necessary.
Peter, just having a flashback in my head. Didn't we talk about moving the chemical storage as part of that big overhaul or adding on to the storage from the other side of the building? Should we
Yeah.
wait and pave down
Then-
there instead?
They're not gonna move it, they're just gonna upgrade it to make it kind of code compliant.
Okay, all right,
The chemical room's gonna stay where it's at, it'll just be,
okay,
there'll be additional kind of additional totes and probably containment systems added.
okay, okay. You need a motion for this?
Yes, please.
So would I need to make motions separately for each transfer
No, you can probably just make one motion to approve what was presented,
or? Okay,
will be adequate.
gotcha.
And then the process after this is I'll submit this to the finance committee and to the finance director and the town administrator, explain everything to them, and that it was approved from the commission. And then we'll get that on the town meeting warrant, so we can get it approved at special town meeting in October.
All right. So in that case, I'll make a motion to, I'll make a motion to approve the transfers as presented and capital expenditures.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, Peter?
Mr. McLean,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Moving on, old business, water line construction update.
Yes, so as we're coming to the end of the school loop project, there are a couple of items that I am working with Kleinfelder and ExxonMobil to try and clean up and kind of correct. Kleinfelder is currently working with Bay Path to add some tanks to help with their pressure concerns at their pump station. And they're also working with Dewberry Engineering to revisit the hydraulic model for the water system and hopefully identify some solutions for the pressure fluctuations in other areas of our water distribution system as well. So those are ongoing. As we get closer to the end, I think in talking with the chairman, I think it'd be probably a good idea to maybe have Kleinfelder and ExxonMobil at our next meeting to give you an update and some concise direction of where they're going with these changes. And then kind of get you guys up to date firsthand on what they're doing.
So I'm talking to Peter, guys, there's been some issues here, and so think we should definitely, Peter, if you can request Kleinfelder to be at the next meeting to give us a update in person, I think that would be great.
No, we'll do. I think that'll work out well.
I would actually like to set that if we can for 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks from now, Peter. I don't know if that's possible or not.
Yeah, we
But
can
I-
meet whenever you like.
I prefer not to wait 4 weeks.
Okay, so we can set up a meeting on the 27th,
Okay,
and the only agenda item, if we have bills, maybe we'll do some warrants and some minutes, and then just open it up and let ExxonMobil and Kleinfeld to give you guys an update.
yeah, that sounds great, Peter. Tell me, so Maura Johnson, is she the one from ExxonMobil that would be here? Is she
He's from Kleinfelder,
Kleinfelder? Is that who would be coming?
probably herself and probably Tyson Ross, who's
Yeah.
also from Kleinfelder.
Okay, fantastic.
So, yeah.
And how about people from ExxonMobil? Would they be coming also?
I'll put the invitation out to the main rep from ExxonMobil who's been involved, but I don't know if she'll be here or not.
Okay,
All right. Excellent.
anybody else have
We'll
any more questions?
set that up for the 27th.
Thank you.
Thank you for handling that.
We could, thank you.
Other business. No, none known. Next meeting announcement, so 2 weeks from now, Peter, you said 27th?
9/27.
Isn't that the day after your birthday, Dave?
It is. I'm turning 34. Yeah. All right, meeting adjournment.
So if there are no objections, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, Mr. McLean,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
All right,
Great.
thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
See you in a couple weeks.
Have a good night.
Bye.